consultant Cheri Jacobus. Sarah, I want to start with you. Should we expect Russia to be a centerpiece of Bush's foreign policy strategy? And then we'll talk about the book.
Yeah, I absolutely think that he has made Russia into, it's a very safe argument for him to say, look, I'm going to be tougher on Russia. It gives him a way to sort of contrast himself with President Obama and make it seem like he would take a tougher approach to foreign policy at a time when a lot of people are worried about sort of America's standing in the world. So I do think we'll hear much more about this. I also think, like I said, it's a really safe space for Bush to be talking in when he's so close to his presidential announcement. A lot of this trip is about appearing presidential and avoiding making any kind of unforced errors.
All right, so let's now talk about Jeb Bush's book from 1995. In an excerpt, Bush wrote, quote, "One of the reasons more young women are giving birth out of wedlock and more young men are walking away from their paternal obligations is that there is no longer a stigma attached to this behavior, no reason to feel shame. There was a time when neighbors and communities would frown on out-of-wedlock births and when public condemnation was enough of a stimulus for one to be careful." So, Cheri, do you think this will haunt Bush, or will some people agree with him?
Look, his heart was in the right place. He's talking about solving the problem of unwed motherhood, children being born into these families. Our latest census data shows us that of the bottom fifth of earners in this country, 83% are comprised of single-parent households, unwed mothers. You have children being born and raised into poverty. What he should have done probably is focused more on the fathers walking away, and there should be a stigma. There should be shame attached when you're letting these children grow up in poverty, having the mother's family having to support them, and in many cases, of course, taxpayers supporting them. So he was making an effort. The left, of course, is trying to make a big deal of this, maybe to take focus away from a Republican candidate's trip overseas. But I got to tell you, the person who is the most unhappy about this, even though the left is trying to do her a favor, is Hillary Clinton. You are reaching back 20 years for old quotes in something that Jeb Bush wrote. And so now that you've opened up that Pandora's box, we got Hillary Clinton 20 years ago in the White House, and she's been trying to say ancient history, off limits, can't do that anymore.
Okay, so Jeb Bush might be able to say that, but Sarah, this isn't just about the book. There was also this 2001 Florida law enacted while Bush was governor. It was called the Scarlet Letter Law. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I actually think this is more jarring than the book because this is a law that had a profound impact on women's lives. What this did in Florida was if you were a woman who you became pregnant, you wanted to give your child up for adoption, but you didn't know who the father was, you had to publish your name, your physical description, a description of people you thought the father might be in the newspaper to give the potential fathers a chance to sort of claim their child before you give it up for adoption. The interesting thing about this is it was pretty clear Jeb Bush knew there was a problem with this law at the time when he was governor. He didn't sign it. He didn't veto it. He sort of let it pass with the understanding that they were going to make a fix to these disclosure rules. Well, it turns out it took 2 years to make that fix, and in the meantime, a court struck it down because it violated the privacy rights of women. And by the time that Jeb Bush signed a repeal of it in 2003, the court had already invalidated this law. And by the way, the really interesting thing about this is Marco Rubio also voted for this law. So it's difficult to see where their heads were at this time and what they were thinking in agreeing to go along with this.
Yeah, and Cheri, I just want you to respond to that because public shaming in that way.
Well, I don't think you should be calling it public shaming. The effort of this was not to
write about who you think you had sex with and the fathers and make it public.
The effort was designed, and of course they knew it was flawed and they fixed it, but you got to support the effort to try and make sure that before a child is put up for adoption,
they knew it was flawed and they fixed it?
You can find the father so that the biological family has every opportunity to nurture, love, and raise that child. Was it an inelegant way to do it? Yes, but the effort and the feeling and the impetus behind it is correct. Did they get it right? Absolutely not. But it was not meant to shame the parent, the mother. It was meant to do everything they could to find the family of the child. Right. And they're trying to at least let the father's family have some say in that. That was the effort. It was not designed to shame the mother. If that was the result, that's why it didn't work. But that was not their intent. But it was not the perfect law. But the intent behind it was definitely to help the child, putting the child first. And I think that's hard to not support that.
All right, Cheri Jacobus, Sarah Murray, thanks to both of you. I'll be right back.
Thank you.